I'm Cynthia James, and this network is about changing lives one woman at a time.
Hello and welcome to Women Awakening. I'm your host, Cynthia James, and I have the distinct honor of introducing you to fabulous women. And when I say fabulous, you know, they are ordinary people just like you and me, but the extraordinary part of their lives is that they've taken charge. They're game changers. They've come here to make a difference on this planet and to empower other women to do the same. So they're examples and models for what we can do to be more open, more available, clear, more successful, more powerful. And so I'm grateful that you're here. We do these every week. We're on all the platforms, iTunes, iHeart, Spreaker, Amazon, Spotify, and we're on video, YouTube. Just subscribe, share the videos, invite other women, because I guarantee you, every single interview will leave you with sparks. And so you can also go to cynthiajames.net. That's where my website, my private community, you can sign up for, and we can hang out together and play. So I want to introduce you to my guest. Her name is Harriet Tubman Wright. She's an accomplished speaker, storyteller, published author, poet, person-centered expressive arts facilitator, a metaphysician, initiated priestess, and elder. And for over 50 years, she's inspired mature spiritual women to transform from limitation to liberation, empowering them to express their true essence, creativity, and leadership capacity. And as the director of the Wright Resort, your soul safari to success, she guides women to fulfill their passion so they can live healthy, purposeful, prosperous lives. Harriet, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm really pleased and excited.
Well, I want to start with how you grew up. You know, a lot of people look at successful people and they think we just dropped on the planet and we just knew what we were going to do. So how'd you grow up?
I was born in Kansas City, Missouri, but I grew up in East Oakland. We were a middle-class family in a working-class neighborhood. I went through public schools. I, got good grades, but I think my real success was my creativity. I sewed my own clothes. I fashion modeled. I was in the Modern Dance Honor Society. I played first violin. And so that creativity was really my foundation. It was certainly something that my mother encouraged, and my father was go to college so you can get a good education, so you can get a good job, so you don't have to depend on a man. So those were the two
I love that.
opportunities.
It's so interesting because I grew up, all the women in my family were single moms, right? But the message was the same. Get educated, get a job, take care of yourself, and don't depend on a man and have your own bank account. I mean, that was the... So you are very invested in women and you have a lot of gifts. And so tell me what was the path to working with women?
In from 75 to 79, I worked for the University YWCA, which is across from UC Berkeley, and I was head of the Black Women's Unit. So we worked with women from college and worked with women in the community, and we met. I mean, these were support groups basically, but we also did some events, and that led me to an opportunity to work for the youth YWCA in Manhattan. Well, if you're coming from California and you move to Manhattan, you out of place. However, I had the opportunity after that to work in West Africa and in East Africa. I was the regional representative for Church World Service. for East Africa and the Indian Ocean. So I traveled basically all over Africa. And from there, I went to India. I spent time with my guru at the time, Baba Muktananda, and eventually worked my way back to California, which was a major, it was a major adjustment. I will say that my son was born in Nairobi, Kenya. He's 38 now. And so coming back to America with a young child as a single parent was a major culture shock. But I went on to get a second master's degree in creation spirituality, and then this degree with Natalie Rogers, person-centered expressive arts. So the common thread is creativity.
Yes.
And working with primarily with women, but also with men, but primarily with women in terms of be who you were born to be, do what you were born to do. Because when you don't, you're stressed, you're unhappy, and you really may be sick because you're here for a reason. You're here for a purpose and passion, and I support women to fulfill that. I mean, it was my own story, and so it's one of the key ways that I work with women who may be managers, they may be business entrepreneurs, they may be community leaders, but they are in service to others because they're working from their own passion and purpose to help heal, empower, and transform others.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's clear. But I want to talk about your name because, hey, first of all, who named you?
Okay, here is my story. My birth name is Harriet Yvonne Wright. However, when anybody said, "What's your name?" I would say Harriet, like Tubman. Otherwise, they'd say, "Hi, Helen. Hi, Hazel. Hi, Henrietta." But if I said Tubman, they remembered my name. And so I worked for the city of Oakland for several years. And when I retired, I took on the business name of Harriet Tubman Wright because I felt I had left the plantation.
Ah, yeah, but you know what was
Business for myself. The elder part came more recently when I went through an elder rite of passage, an initiation. I'm 75. And so I can call myself an elder because I am.
well, we're the same age, and so I get it. But it was really interesting because when I saw your name and I saw what you did, you know, I mean, yes, she led people off of plantations to freedom, but it felt like when I was reading your bio that you did the same thing. You helped people move into freedom of expression and ways of being.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is very true in terms of being who you were born to be, doing what you're born to do, because that is the liberation. That
Yes.
is the opportunity to transform not only your life, but transform the lives of those you serve. And I mean, sometimes they say we have 9 lives, but at least in this one, let's do it in the highest and best good.
Yeah. And so I want to talk about conscious aging, because, baby boomers, of which we are there's a lot of us on the planet, and a lot of us are aging, and some of us are aging gracefully and some of us not. What do you tell women about how to age consciously?
I think that one of the most important things are spiritual practices like affirmative prayer, meditation. So the notion of self-care and those spiritual practices are a part of keeping our consciousness in keeping our consciousness intact. Clarity about who I am, why I am, and what it is I'm here to do. That is the spiritual practices is one thing. It also includes the physical, quality time in nature, getting massages, that kind of hanging out in the hot tub under the full moon.
Yeah.
So those, are the physical. So it's the spiritual, the physical, and it's the emotional. Sometimes we ought to talk to a therapist. It's fine that we talk to a coach, but we might want to talk to a therapist or be open to that on an individual basis or a group basis. When my father passed, I was in grief counseling for a long time, and I worked with different people. And what I recognize is that when people become ancestors, they are still communicating to
Yes.
and through us. And so, I can hear my mother, and I have an ancestor altar right here. And so when I eat, they eat too. And so it's that awareness that yes, there is the creator, the divine, whatever name you want to, and there are the ancestors who are also alive in me. And so
Yes.
they are communicating in, through, and as me.
Yeah, it's really interesting because in my spiritual practice every day, I connect with the ancestors
Mhm.
because I know they guide and I know they
Mhm.
support and and also, I mean, I don't know about your family, but my family didn't age so well, because they were into survival.
Mhm.
So, how was your family? I mean, did they age well? Were they conscious in their aging?
Well, it's an interesting question. Unfortunately, my mother passed at age 62, just a year before she and my father were going to visit me in Kenya. And a I got a telegram. Mommy expired November 10th. Call daddy. So I am traveling from Nairobi, Kenya, all the way to San Francisco, wondering why my mother is gone. And when I get home, there are people in the house. And the next day, I'm going to a funeral, wondering why my mother is gone. And then it's raining so hard, we can't go to the cemetery, and all my friends are, who haven't seen me or at the, so it was really difficult with my father, who passed in 2014. He spent 10 years in a nursing home. So as the old firstborn, I had all this responsibility. And when he went on hospice, uh, we knew it was just a matter of time. And on May 28th, Maya Angelou passed. It was a new
Mhm.
moon. And I had said to my father, well, if you want to leave, this would be a good time. Well, he decided May 29th. And
Oh,
so it's interesting because on that, his birthday is June 2nd. He would have been 92 on June 2nd. On that day, one of my sisters and I had gone to the church, the funeral home, and the cemetery to make these arrangements. And the rest of the family was so his funeral was exactly a week later, June 5th. And I telling you, I went through uh, quite a bit of grief counseling around that, and I feel that it's very important that even that we continue to communicate, whether it's in prayer, whether it's in chanting, in whatever way, to be able to communicate, because they are alive in me.
yes,
They are
yes.
alive in me and they're communicating through me. I also want to say that grief counseling, support around grief is very important. I was fortunate to work with Malidoma and Sabonfu Some.
Mm.
And so we in that culture, people, and I lived in Burkina Faso, it was Upper Volta at that time. And so if there was a someone who passed, you may be days and days of honoring them and grieving.
Yes,
It isn't just
yes.
going to bury them. It is, quite a community focus on grieving. And I'll say one other thing. What I've learned is that it is the role of the grandparent to remind the grandchild of their purpose. And that helps you understand the relationship between grandparents and grandchildren, to remind that grandchild of their purpose. And then it was like, oh, no wonder my father and my son were just such good buddies. My father went to every event, and the guys on the team, whether it was basketball or high jump, they'd say, "Hi, granddad. Hi, granddad." So
Oh, that is so great. I mean, and so important. I want to ask you, tell me about being an initiated priestess and elder.
I have had a lot of spiritual teachers, and so I was initiated as a priestess a few years ago. The elder initiation, when you live in other countries, the Jewish at 13 they have a bat mitzvah or a bat or bas
Mm.
mitzvah to recognize that they're adolescents. Well, in many indigenous cultures, the elders are revered. They're
Yes.
respected. You look not in the, well. What I say that we get some senior discounts, and I'm hoping for some senior discounts. I'm happy to be seated at the front of the bus, or
Mm.
what I'm grateful for those things, but it's very different than how other cultures respect, honor, and revere elders. And so I brought this idea to Louisa Tish, and she took it on. And so there were 12, 13 of us who went through our version, a modern version of a rite of passage. And so some of the women took on different names. I decided I would just take on elder.
Mhm.
And so now that's why I have to put Elder Harriet Tubman right so I can remember who I am.
Well, I just love that, because I've traveled a lot, and I want to talk about that in a moment, but I've traveled a lot, and there are so many cultures that they take care of the elders. They bring them into their homes. They nurture them till they transition off the planet. And I don't know what happened to our culture, but we lost it somewhere. And so many of the aging population feel isolated and alone and not supported. And so I just think it's so great that you went through this process. And yes, Elder Harriet Tubman, right? I just think that that's incredible. I want to talk about travel because I travel. I take people on pilgrimages around the world.
Sure.
What do you think is important about people traveling to other cultures?
To open up your mind. I, truly, it is about opening your mind and heart to something that may be different, something that's unusual, something that you may not even understand. I mean, when I first went to Africa, just getting used to those little Grecos and the fact that we ate outside all the time, that we had siestas. You rise early and then you go home at the heat of the day and then you come back in the evening. That to me is civilized, not this 9 to 5 where you crazy by the end of the day. And then, and then of course with all this social media that adds another element. And so the importance of travel is experiencing the culture, the language, the customs of others. You can learn something and you can share something. Many, when I traveled in Africa, they would look at me and they say, "Oh, our lost sister has returned. Our sister has returned." When I had my first assignment in Kenya, it was in Tanzania, and I was dressed in my African stuff and had my little hair. And this brother from South Africa, he says, "I just knew you were a Cape Town girl until you opened your mouth." And so sometimes in Tanzania in particular, because of how I look, the fact that I didn't speak fluent Swahili.
Yeah, well, it's so incredible though. I work with women in Uganda and Rwanda, and one of the things I love about travel is that you get to see that the heart
Yes,
of people is present.
yes,
And all the scared things that we get bombarded with have nothing to do with the people.
true, absolutely true. And yeah, and I think traveling and having those kinds of interactions is why it's important to travel and to be open to the culture, the customs, the language, because they are going to be different, but there's value in that.
Yes,
There's
absolutely.
value and lessons in that.
So I want to know how people find you, to work with you, to see your work. How do we do that?
I'm going to put something in the chat
Okay.
because I prepared to put it in the chat. So let me get it in here. And this is the best way. You
Is
can
it a,
go
is it a
to
website?
my website, which
Mm.
is the Wright Resort, THEWRIGHTRESORT, is the best way to connect with me. And if you want to engage, there's an opportunity for a complimentary guidance session, or you can invest in a session with me. And we can get acquainted. You can come. I mean, I really work in the areas of self-care, soul's calling, and social change. And self-care is fundamental. And so
100%.
go to the rightresort.com and you'll see what the offerings are and the ways that you can contact me to set up a one-on-one.
Yeah, it would be great. I see in your chat it says Harriet at therightresort.com. You know, what I want to say to you is I think the work that you're doing is extraordinarily important. And I want to ask you the same question I ask everybody at the end of my uh, sessions here is the show is called Women Awakening. And what do you think is the most important thing about women, especially elder women awakening at this time?
We have natural qualities of nurturing, cultivating, birthing, creating. And when we can do that together, whether we are elder women or whether we are women in our 30s and 40s, when we can come together collaboratively, collectively to create the change that is required. I call it, Barbara Marx Hubbard called it uh, evolutionary change. I call it revolutionary change to heal and help the planet, and to heal and help ourselves, because Mother Earth and Mother Nature are going to be here. The question is to what extent we are
Hello.
going to be here. And so it's really important, I feel, to love yourself no matter what your age is, and be prepared to share your skills, your gifts, and the talents generously and in collaboration with others. I feel like that's the answer to being here for a few more rounds.
Absolutely. Well, couldn't have said it better myself. Well, um, thank you so much for being here and bringing your wisdom. And thank you for your commitment to supporting women.
Thank you. It's been a true pleasure. I'm glad we were able to connect.
Me too. All right, ladies, I end this show the same way with different words. You're here for a reason. Your presence on this planet matters. And so this body temple that you have been given is yours to care for, to love, to honor, and respect. You know, you're looking at a fabulous woman who, you know, is telling us that she's a certain age, but the energy and the passion is moving her forward. You can do the same thing. Just step into it, do your spiritual practice, and say yes to your passion and your gifts. I love you, and I will see you next time.